Hey, what's going on, guys? I am a bit excited, actually super excited. About 5 months ago, I put a $250 deposit down on a new machine. And I was told it would probably be somewhere around May, maybe early June before I got it. Well, guess what? It came early. It's April 6th. It was my birthday just a few days ago. That was a gift to myself. Happy birthday. So let's take a look at what we got here. Now, if you haven't figured out quite what this is yet, this is a Parajet MavMax with the Moster 185 EFI. That's why I had to wait so long to get it. Now, as you probably know, if you follow my channel, I like technology. I like the newest and greatest. I want to try different things. This is something I've been waiting for since I did my training 4 years ago. I knew at that time it was a possibility, it was coming out. The reliability, the benefits of flying at different altitudes, launching from different elevations, that drew me to this motor. This is going to be a bit of a series on what I think of this motor, how it compares to the other motors I have. Keep in mind I've got the SP140 electric paramotor, and then I've got a couple motors that run the Moster 185. So this thing is locked in. I can do the last 3 break-in procedures without having it on my back. So one of the nice things is you don't have to put an hour meter on this thing. You don't have to put a tachometer on it because it's all built into the display unit. And this display unit is movable, so you can really put it wherever you want. It's got some nice straps. So I rigged it up here on the golf cart so that it's nice and easy. I can measure everything. I also got the off-grid throttle for this thing because I just love that throttle. I've got it on all my machines. It came from the factory this way, so I didn't have to try to wire it up, and it works exactly the same way as the Parajet would for this e-start system. So anyway, let's get through a couple more break-ins and see how it goes. Today we're going to do a video of the introductory flight of the EFI Moster 185. Now, full disclosure, I've had this up in the air a few times, probably 90 to 120 minutes on it so far. I wanted to fly it a little bit, kind of get used to it before I discuss it, the pros and cons, what I like, what I'm not really sure quite yet about. And there's a little bit of a learning curve here. There's a lot of data that this display has, and I'm still kind of learning how it all works. I've talked with Parajet a couple times. So anyway, let's throw a little bit of fuel in here and get this guy up in the air. Now, as you can see, we've got about 8 liters of fuel. I am going to weigh this guy, show you exactly what it weighs. Now, the factory will say it weighs a certain amount, but I've got my cutoff tool, I've got my reserve, I've got 8 liters of fuel, I've got my 360 camera, I've got a couple other accessories. I keep a couple tools in the bag on the side. So let's see what the all-up weight is once you get all of your stuff on the paramotor. Let's see what that actual weight is. Just over 86 pounds. Now that's pretty comparable to what my Parajet Zenith weighs, with comparable fuel and everything, all the gadgets and gizmos on it. So the reality is, I really don't think this thing is that much heavier than a basic unit. Now, if you're going to compare it to a Parajet Maverick, which has a smaller hoop and a smaller prop and obviously not as many accessories, well, there you go. There is a difference in weight. But for me personally, I don't mind the mid 80s. As far as weight, I'm used to it. Not a big deal. We basically start with flipping this switch. Everything's plugged in. That's good. That's going to bring us up to our display unit here. And you can see right now it's saying pump valve max. It's basically priming the fuel pump. Okay, so we're going to wait for that. You can see the numbers are changing a little bit. And then once this is done, we actually have to add in how much fuel we have. So this system will give it a starting point. It doesn't have a fuel gauge on it. So we're going to bump this up to 8 liters. Okay, we're good to go. You can see the battery's at 100%. Come over here. Now normally we don't ground start, right? That's a no-no. I've already done all my checks. And we don't have to give it any throttle. We don't have to prime anything. This thing will do its own thing. Simple as that. Now it does need to warm up the same as any other motor, so we'll just give a little bit of time to idle here. One thing I have to say that's an advantage is they didn't recreate anything crazy. Outside of this display unit, you really wouldn't notice any different in how the motor looks, how the throttle works. Everything else is pretty much the same. Let's do a quick run up here. Now this is the first 140 centimeter prop I've had. This motor comes with a 287 reduction, so you can do 140 centimeter prop, which is nice. I do like it. It just makes for a little bit bigger of a cage. It's really the only downside, if you had to think of a downside for it. It is a cooler day today. I was kind of hoping for some warmer weather, but that's all right. So we'll get up in the air. Now we're going to talk a little bit about kind of my thoughts so far in this unit. There's literally no wind right now. And we got the old dudek. Alright. The added power is nice, that's for sure. Okay, supposedly it's supposed to be pretty smooth tonight. So, we haven't had really smooth air for quite some time. I've gone on a number of flights, but I've tolerated the bumps just to be able to fly. Okay, let's talk a little bit about why I ordered this machine. I've been pretty happy, honestly, with the carbureted Moster 185. My first motor, if you followed my channel, you know I wasn't too happy with the first one I had on my Maverick. Something wasn't right about that, and honestly, it kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth for that particular motor. But my second one ran pretty much flawlessly. My third one, my fourth one on the Zenith, and I can't really complain about it. There's been a couple things here and there, but that's just part of any motor. So why did I get the EFI then? Well, part of it is that I've been wanting and waiting for this motor for so long to come out. When I did my training back in 2000, it was being talked about. I had heard rumors about it, and I thought, okay, this has got to be coming out here within the next year or so. And it just kept getting pushed off and off and off. I like the idea of lower maintenance. I like the idea of a computer monitoring things and making sure everything is running efficiently and at its best. The fuel economy, of course, is going to be better on this, but that's not a huge deal to me. I'm normally not flying for 3-4 hours at a time.
and the added cost of a little bit of fuel isn't that big of a deal. The biggest thing for me is the technology, and I unfortunately spend a lot of money on technology because I like to see the newest and greatest, what's out there, what's working, what's not working, what's the future look like. That's one of the reasons I bought the SP140 from OpenPPG is I had a paramotor that worked just fine, but an electric paramotor, that was the whole idea of it was impressive to me. So I bought one, and I kind of went through some of the hurdles with it because it was new technology and a little bit of a learning curve, but I love the thing. And I know other people who have flown it have talked about how amazing it is. The limitation is the battery, of course. You only get so much flight time. So to me, the EFI is kind of a balance between a carbureted motor, like the Moster 185, and the electric, where you get a little bit more reliability, like the electric, a little better fuel economy, I guess you could call it, cost per hour, lower maintenance, and just overall reliability. So this is kind of like the perfect motor at this point. Do I think the electric is better? If I had to choose and flight time wasn't an issue, I would choose the electric. I love the electric where when I cut the motor, it's dead quiet. I can do whatever I want, soar through the air, I feel free, it's peaceful. Here I still got the motor kind of rumbling behind me. Pros and cons, everybody likes something a little bit different. Let's go bomb a couple fields here since we've got really good conditions. Play around with this thing a little bit. Yes, this is what I've missed about the smooth air. We haven't been able to do some serious wingovers for quite some time. Wingovers are not fun in rough air, at least not for me, because it's not smooth. You're coming down, looking at the ground, and your wings bouncing around. Not fun at all. We'll avoid these cows over here. So as far as smoothness, this motor is very smooth from idle all the way up. Even right now I'm at about 5,400 RPM, and it's just nice and smooth. It's got the bigger prop. I like it. I like that part of it. It's kind of a small area here, but with this wing, as nimble as it is, you can kind of flip around. Do whatever you want. Now, this isn't going to matter for EFI or just a MavMax with the 140 prop anyway, but let's do a little climb just to kind of see how she goes. Full power climb. I feel like it does well. I almost feel like my Zenith with the 130 prop is comparable. I don't feel like this is amazing, but it does well. It's almost too smooth sometimes, where maybe it's because it's not as noisy. It doesn't feel as powerful. I don't know. Going over this display a little bit, I can't show you it really in flight with the GoPro, but it does give you some good data. It's basically got 5 data points. One is it tells you your RPM, which is great to see. You don't have to add a tachometer. I've always added them to my throttle so I can actually see them in flight. I don't have to do that now. I've got this display here. It tells me exactly what RPMs I'm running. I mostly like that for idle. When I drop to idle, I like to know that I'm idling at a good RPM. And I've had a few motor outs over the years, and it's typically been because my idle gets too low, and then the motor just shuts off. One of the other metrics is the battery percentage. So I'm at 100% right now. I've been very happy with this battery. They say, I think it's 7 hours you should get out of it of flight time. I would guess longer than that from what I've seen so far. I also got a kind of like a fuel economy gauge. So depending on the RPMs I'm at, it'll tell me my liters per hour that I'm burning at that rate. So let me level off here. I'll set a nice, comfortable speed here. Now, just to give you a ballpark idea, so at 5,600 RPM, it says I'm burning 2.6 liters per hour. So if I'm just cruising around, that's pretty good fuel economy for this motor. Now, if I bump that up a little bit in a climb, so now I'm at 7,500, now I'm burning 6 liters per hour. I would guess on my typical motors with my weight and my type of flying, I'm probably burning an average of around 4 to 5 liters per hour. Maybe more sometimes. There's times I've filled up with 6-7 liters and I've landed with a liter after an hour. So it really depends on the type of flying that you're doing. Now, one of the other metrics is it tells me how much fuel I have left. Now, basically, it's just doing a math equation based off of what I put in when we started, which was 8 liters, and then kind of what I've done so far. The other metric is temperature. So there's 2 readings it gives us. One is the cylinder head temperature, and the other one is the exhaust temperature. I have had my cylinder temperature, once it gets to 210, it gives you a warning to reduce your throttle, and that's popped up a couple of times. And I actually emailed Literazi about it just to, like, that seems a little bit, I don't know if that's too hot for a warning. I've never had any issue flying my 2-stroke, carbureted, full throttle for, 2-3 minutes at a time if I'm doing a long climb. We'll cross over this little mountain range here. Looks like somebody's doing some burning. So of course we've got the reliability of if I kill it. Now I've got dual start motors anyway, so I do this quite a bit on my 2-stroke carbureted motor anyway. But it is nice. This is a little bit more reliable of a starting system. There is no pull start. So basically this starter has to carry all the weight of starting this motor. So we'll restart here. I think we'll restart. All right. Oh, that's right. I can't hit the throttle. That's why we do that experiment up high. So it did restart right away. So I tried to give it a little bit of throttle, which is what I would normally do when I'm restarting my carbureted motor, and you can't do that with this because the safety mechanism in here, if you give it a little bit of throttle, within a few seconds, it's going to kill it. So you just kind of have to be patient, let the motor do the work. Easy to forget when you're used to the other way. So that was my target field. If I wasn't able to get it started, I was going to land in this field down here. So I've got a new headset. This is my first recording using the PPG Smoke headset. I really like the headset. It definitely dampens things. I still wear my earplugs underneath, but it feels real nice. It's very comfortable. I make phone calls from this. Travis, when him and I fly, he's got the same headset. We talk back and forth. It's way better than anything either of us have had in the past. So the only thing I would say I wish it had was like the Cena has a Bluetooth connection, so we wouldn't have to make phone calls to communicate. It'd be nice if we could just sync the headsets together, but that's not an option. So obviously I'm still pretty new with the EFI. I maybe got 2.5 hours on it by now, and there's a little bit of a learning curve to it, just because there's just enough of a difference that you got to think about things differently. Kind of like the starting situation, where normally I'd give it some gas when I'm starting. You can't do that with this. Let the computer do the job. Most 90% of it is the same. You just start the motor, warm it up, you fly it as normal. You don't have to pay too much attention to this unless you want to check your RPMs. But a lot of the things we're so used to not even paying attention to when we're flying, right? We know how much gas we put in. We've got an idea how long we can fly. We just go. So you can do that with this motor as well, but the data's here when you want it. Now, one thing I wish, and this is the first version. Maybe things will change here in upcoming versions or firmware. But why not put a GPS in here? So I've got my speed, I've got my altitude, all of the data that I have to use my watch or my cell phone for. It'd be awesome if it was all in this display. And I'm thinking, right, this is wishful thinking maybe, down the road I can imagine a nice big LCD screen here with like all the data you get from Gaggle with different, where the other pilot's at, where the other plane's at. It's got my speed, it's got my altitude, and all of this data with the motor. That would be pretty awesome. And I know some people are thinking, no, we don't need all that information. When you're out there flying, you just want to fly. And I get that. I get that as well. But being a tech guy, I'm not against having good information at my fingertips. I guess that's the best way to put it. This is a beautiful field. This is so green. So as you can see the Smoky Mountains in the distance there, I want to fly from my house to the Smoky Mountains, buzz around, and then fly home. And my Zenith has a 15-liter tank, I believe it's 15, which I feel pretty confident I could probably fly there and back. But I got the 18-liter upgrade on this one because I thought, if I get this awesome fuel economy, I could literally go out for 3 or 4 hours and really do some cruising up in that area. So there are some pros to getting better fuel economy for those cross-country flights. Now, we weighed this up at 86 pounds with, what did we have, 8 liters of fuel? So I can't imagine throwing another 10 in there. It'd be heavy, but hey, if we got a little headwind, it shouldn't be too bad. So, if you like data, you would like this setup. It's a lot like when I first got the OpenPPG SP140. All the data was really cool. I really liked it. But eventually you get used to it and you're just flying anyway. So, is it super important? Feels like they still have a bit of a tailwind. We're plugging along at 30 miles an hour though. I twisted my ankle really bad a couple of weeks ago, and it swelled up, and I've been super easy on it. So last week I was finally able to foot launch again, but it's still very tender. So I'm not as worried as much about the launch as I am about the landing. So we're coming up to the house. Right now it's saying I've got about 5 liters of fuel remaining. So we burned about 3 liters. And I'll have to time it out, but I think we've been flying for about an hour. So let me do a quick loop around, check my windsock before we commit to this landing. Here we go. Alright, that wasn't too bad of a landing. Ankle is still intact. Let's go look at our data. That was a fun flight. So we only used 10% of the battery. So if that gives you an idea as far as flight time goes. Okay, let's take a look at this. So this gives us our data at the end of our flight. Well guys, thanks for joining me on this flight. This was cool. It was cool to be able to see how all this comes together.